Now, it's not always easy. That is why at the beginning today, we had the confession and forgiveness of sin. We recognize that no matter the lead that we receive, there are those times when we are really jumbling it up. When we are bumbling along, trying to follow this holy lead, and yet can't quite get it. But the embrace is there and does not let go. It continues to hold us fast, perhaps with a palm on the back to redirect, or a little stronger grab of our hand, inviting us, calling us to move more smoothly, not letting go. And it is that movement that begins to move us with the time. We follow in the embrace of this Christ who comes and journeys with us. It is the most realized sense of God that we can understand. Imagine that community 2,000 years ago, nearly 2,000 years ago, standing there with one in front of them, who heals, who teaches with great authority and care, who heals and overcomes death. Imagine the minds of those people seeing God, this Holy One made real. And not always in the ways that they anticipate or expect. Sometimes it's quite challenging, taking on political powers and temple priests, calling people to new ways of being, taking them to the river, in a sense, to be baptized, to be changed as they heard the words of John the Baptizer. But how real. We celebrate today that incarnational piece of our theology alongside this God who has created us and called us into a dance in our life and living. And then finally, we are promised a spirit that will guide, strengthen, and sustain us, whose very voice echoes throughout the pages of time. In Proverbs, we are given beautiful images of this Lady Wisdom, who stands at the front of time before earth is created, who is there, a part of the Holy One, whose very breath and words ring for the people. Now, she does not speak to condemnation or anger, which we are oftentimes used to, especially in some of the prophetic literature and even in some of the Psalms and Proverbs, but rather there is effusive praise. Praise at the beauty of creation and its inhabitants. Wonder at what God has created and how we live into that relationship. And so as we hear these words of Jesus saying that the Spirit, the Advocate, will come and be present, we are invited in the most wonderful way to again imagine and reimagine that Spirit dwelling in us and for us, lifting up God's voice across the ages and for us today. Now, it's easy for us to want to formalize, dogmatize, and say that all of this fits in a neat little box. The reality is, what we see is the relationality of God in God's self, of humanity with God. This becomes the blessing of this Sunday, is it allows us to open ourselves to that sense of mystery. And the next time you say the creed, whether the Apostles, the Nicene, or the Athanasian, it doesn't have to be about getting up or down. And for some, it doesn't mean standing there in a church with your fingers crossed behind your back. But rather, being present and hearing these images as they speak to us and call us into relationship and into new understanding. The Creed allows us to come together as a church, to lift one another up, to look to the holy, recognizing it is not always perfect, as we are not always perfect. But it holds us close, and it directs us in faith, so that as the Spirit descends and fills our hearts, we may walk in the ways of God, with whom Jesus dwells, now and forever, as we dance this incredible dance.